Recording. Okay, it's 5 o'clock. Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the City of Kingston Tree Commission meeting. My name is Suzanne Cahill. I'm the planning director for the City of Kingston. Today is November 12, 2024, and it is 5 o'clock. Just a couple of quick announcements for everybody in the room before we get started. If you do have a cell phone with you, I just ask that you please put it on silent so that it does not interfere with the meeting. If you do need to use a restroom, they are through the council chambers on the other side of the building. Men's would be to the left and women's to the right. If we do have an emergency, we ask that you do not use the elevator and use the stairs. If you need assistance, please ask us and we will help you. And lastly, if you do have a conversation that is not involving the tree commission, we just ask that you take it outside of the room. You can use the chamber, or there is another conference room on the opposite side of the chambers as well. With that said, I will say that we obviously are recording. You heard that. We are also live streaming the meeting. And we're going to go around the table and have the commission members introduce themselves, and then we will start the meeting. Again, I'm Sue Cahill. I'm the planning director.
I'm Brett Heffer. I'm the urban forester for the City of Kingston.
I'm Karen from the Tree Commission.
Vince Orchard, Tree Commission.
Evan Kane, Tree Commission.
Elizabeth Collins, Tree Commission, and representative for the Memorial Tree Fund.
Okay, great. We do have a couple of individuals here. I think we'll just, do you want to just we'll skip right to you so you can get on your way. You want to just introduce yourself? Brent, you want to pull up her information?
My name is Nita Friedman. I live at 203 Pearl Street. And I'm here because of this big silver maple, which is an enormous tree. It's 4 foot in diameter around the bottom. And Brent is saying that it needs to come down in the next 1 to 3 years because it's dying. And it has been dropping very heavy limbs. Like one this big, not, didn't look like it was that big. I don't know whether it was petrified or what, but it would be like bricks falling out of the sky. I mean, it's really heavy. I hate to take it down.
Does the tree show any signs of infestation or anything, or is it just of age that is?
So the tree has 2 signs of it being in decline. One is going to be the crown dieback, which Nita, you're referring to, with like various branches that are coming down. A natural process where the tree dies back to try to conserve its resources. But then also upon site inspection, I was able to see that there is decay visible from openings in the upper part of the tree and then going through the center column of the tree as well. I can pull up photos of that also.
So it's structural as well?
Without doing a investigation that would have like some penetrative tools go in, it would be hard to determine how much the decay is affecting the structural nature of the tree. So like the areas where the tree crown overhead is dying back and there's still some remaining spots, have the potential to be over the street, the sidewalk, in the front yard as well.
And the house.
And it does go a little bit towards the front of the house as well. The recommendation that I made for removal of the tree in the next 1 to 3 years, one on the conservative side, because without doing the structural investigation of the tree, which would cost quite a bit of money to have a third party do that as well. And the ultimate conclusion would still be to remove the tree.
You're pretty sure of that?
Yes, yeah. So I'm also like certified for tree risk assessment qualifications. So in past positions, I've been the one who's been hired to do these sort of things. So I have a lot of experience with trees that are in decline, outliving the available space they have to them in an urban setting. And this is kind of your textbook example of a silver maple, very fast growing tree, has taken up the usable soil volume there. And silver maples are also very prone to having that decay in the center of them, which is why I also said within 1 to 3 years, because on the more forgiving side, this tree still has value, it's still putting out leaves. Shade, stormwater, pollution, helps with all those sort of things. So with the ability to monitor it, say if you did want to do like a structural inspection on the tree for like a risk assessment purpose or something like that, you could buy a couple of years worth of time if you find it worth the investment.
Like, how much do you think it would cost?
Um,
Ballpark.
I'd say start at $1,000.
And will it make sense to kind of like prune it, to kind of like limit, you know, like the
Mhm.
fall? And like if you wanted to invest just to kind of like keep it this way, there's no major limb falling, like to kind of like help it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So one of the things that Corinne is recommending is that you could just prune out the current dead wood that's there to eliminate that risk and allow the tree to stand for a while longer. I did not see any signs of decay around the basal area, the base of the tree. So that means, as best as I can tell from the outside, it has a good foundation to it. It won't just keel over like that sort of thing. But it will, continue to decay more internally and die back externally around the crown as well.
This is the piece that's kind of going over the house.
So maybe you can remove this one.
If we're, that is a big part of the tree. So it would just kind of be these left. This one's kind of dead.
I brought up a photo from earlier. That piece is the piece that's over the sidewalk and front lawn and closer to your home, Nita. Where, that would be like the piece that I would focus on pruning out.
Which, this one?
Yes, probably just from a different angle.
Well, she's saying maybe this whole one right here, this
Yeah.
whole one.
So if you
And it
were,
would just be this left.
yeah, so for everyone else, what Nita's showing right now on her phone is like, the two larger trunks that are coming off from the base of the union, just removing the whole trunk that is going towards your home, I'm assuming, if you were to do that, you'd probably be removing a minimum of like 40% of the total
The
tree.
balance of the tree
Yeah.
would be.
So structurally, the tree wouldn't be balanced anymore because it has grown to have that weight evenly spread, and bracing wind and everything like that. Also, it'd be a real shock to the health of the tree, and that might be what kills it because it's already in a state of decline anyway. This is a situation that we do kind of run into pretty frequently where it's like, does removing the entirety of a large limb that is putting this, fear of something happening to your home still leave you with a tree that is like structurally sound and able to live afterwards? And it's complicated, but we frequently run into a situation where the tree wouldn't likely still be sound and has like a high potential of dying in the next few years if you were to do that kind of extreme pruning. And then just.
But if you did a lesser pruning,
Yeah,
that
so
might-
a reduction pruning,
Keep it,
yeah,
Yeah.
going a little longer foot limb, but just,
yeah.
you know.
So also, this may help for the rest of the commission to see, but, so that is maybe like a 18-inch wide limb, that we can see the decay going into it. This decay is coming from the top, meaning gravity just pushes that decay further and further down the tree. I also did some light mallet sounding on the trunk, which is taking a mallet to hear for solid wood versus hollow wood. And I did, from that sounding, hear a little bit of decay in the center of the trunk. It's not conclusive, right? But it's more me just trying to paint the full picture for you.
Well, I had a company that a neighbor used recently, and I saw their work. It was called Osario, and they're the ones who came and gave me a quote. And that guy said, when I asked him about pruning, he said, no. Now, I don't know whether this is true or not, but he said, nobody's gonna want to prune it because it's gonna leave a destabilized tree that
That's right.
then somebody's gonna be liable for.
Mhm. Yeah, and they won't want to take that liability.
This guy didn't want to.
Yeah, that's a trend I've noticed. I've worked on the private side before, the municipal side, and yeah, it's like, if there's not really a big price difference between like removing the total tree and just removing like the larger limbs and that sort of thing, the cost of the potential liability is not worth it for some private companies.
You're a tree guy, do you have an opinion?
I climbed. I didn't see the tree. It's really hard to estimate by pictures. I know that some reduction pruning could help older trees, but it's probably 2-3 pruning sessions over like 5, 6, 7 years period, which can cost more than removal. With the structure I see, because I climb, I don't have a bucket, and for me that would be a challenging tree
To prune.
to prune. Yes, and again, this I don't know how much decay is there. Like this is concerning. I wouldn't leave anything like that if I could.
Which
jump
piece
the
is that
tree.
on?
Can you show me the?
And also, it's on that line in between the road and the sidewalk, which means all the root system is in very, very bad condition.
Yeah, it's like this.
Yes, it has no room to grow. The soil is compacted there by multiple constructors.
Inside.
And so if you want to keep the tree, I would say 3 pruning sessions and some root aeration, which might be another, I don't know, 5 grams there or something.
That's a,
And then the tree has a chance, but it's not guaranteed.
yeah.
It's an old tree.
Yeah, so the area that photo is showing is right here on the tree, so not even in the higher up sections, it's more in the center of the tree, which is, that's like a red flag for me, instead of seeing it on the end. With that being said, like, it's really sad when trees come to
It
the
is.
ends of their lives.
Just don't feel good about it.
Yeah, with managing trees in an urban setting, we are managing their inevitable end of life as well. Then the next step after that is planting new trees. Would you be amenable to having more trees be added in the area where this tree currently is?
Definitely would, but where it is, it's only this wide
Yeah.
between the street and the sidewalk.
Yeah, we can talk more about it.
Yes, definitely.
In the narrower parkway spaces between this curb and the sidewalk, there's also smaller species that could be more of an appropriate fit there. There's also the capacity of planting behind the sidewalk too, which is a conversation that you and I could have separately.
Yeah.
But you get an open green space, that part of Pearl, it's really pretty. Eventually, if it's nothing but big trees, when they all decline, what's left?
Oh, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, so it
Maybe
might be a good
copper
time.
beech. There's copper beeches in the neighborhood.
But yeah, I've seen those. Those are really pretty. You could be starting the next step of the ecological succession by controlling the time to remove this tree instead of the tree deciding, which never really works out well for us. And then planting the next generation of trees.
Well, what really got my attention was that heavy branch.
Yeah.
Somebody getting killed.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell where it was coming from. I couldn't really tell where it came from, so it's like it could be any of those.
Yeah, yeah. But is there anything else that you want us to know about the tree?
Okay, so would you recommend, I mean, if she wants to, I mean, I'm open to, if she's interested in trying the pruning step first to prolong the tree for a little longer, that's fine, but I would also, put in there that, you know, that would give her the permission to remove it
Yeah,
if that were to take away too much of the crown so that the tree becomes unbalanced and unhealthy.
See, it would be this big one.
Yeah, I really think that once you take that off, the entire tree is gonna be subject to.
It's so much of the tree.
Yeah, yeah, I really do, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Nita, what I'm wondering is if for this evening, if the commission were to, take a vote on giving you the permission both for pruning in the short term and long-term removal, would that kind of cover your bases? And then you and I can kind of look at the tree together, maybe make some choices about what you'd like to do now versus knowing that you have permission for both?
That's good.
Okay.
Do you have anything further? You sounded like you had some ideas.
No, I'm thinking like in the pruning, but not like the old pruning, but just like more in balance to keep the tree. And I'm really raising issues.
Vince, you had a question?
If the cover beech tree, like so, it's a huge, becomes a very huge tree.
Yeah, making
Yeah.
it huge.
Huge, very huge, bigger than this.
Yeah, there's one next door.
There's one next door.
Is the park, the parkway not a good fit for anything beach family? But behind the sidewalk, potentially, there would be space for that.
On the property itself.
Yeah, but it may be not big enough. Something to consider, yeah.
But I have a feeling about some things you probably like about that Copper Beach, and I can tell you about some more trees
Okay.
that maybe hit on the same notes. too.
Okay.
We need a motion from one of the commissioners. Okay, Debbie?
I'll make a motion that we allow, the silver maple at 203 Pearl Street to, be pruned if possible, and if that's not an option, then to allow it to be removed, and perhaps a new tree planted somewhere in the area with all the conditions that.
Okay, so there's a motion, is there a second? Kareem got it. Okay, so there's a motion and a second, is there any discussion?
Yeah, I just have one question.
Uh-huh,
You said pruning, and you made a comment about this particular piece. Was that what you had in mind originally, or
Uh,
instead of cutting back any of the live lumps that are leaning that way?
I think maybe I probably came into it a bit biased, knowing that tree companies, it may be hard for them to justify the liability of doing the reduction pruning. I could be wrong about that. But my long-term recommendation was focused on the removal based on like the dieback and the decay. With that window of time, and like, this is not like this tree immediately needs to be removed situation, but, you know, 1 to 3 years is like a safe time frame from what I was observing.
Okay.
any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, guys.
Okay, so the next one is 24 Glen Street.
you know, something you know tomorrow.
Thanks.
Enjoy your day.
This is a removal.
Bring up the next one. It should be sharing.
There we go.
The blazing speed of Zoom. At this site, we had a row of 9 trees. It was mostly Norway maples. Towards the end, where you might see a little person walking, there we had both a catalpa and a red elm in it as well. The property owner reached out about wanting to clear out all of these trees. On Glen Street, this is like a more open space road area. You can see it's mostly lawn with a little bit of brush behind there. The right-of-way line for these trees was very close, where 6 out of the 9 trees were on the private property. The remaining 3 are within the city right-of-way. So the property owner has the right to do the removal of the 6 trees without checking with the city. And I'll queue up some other photos, but essentially if we're going left to right, tree number 3, a Norway maple, is in the right of way, and then the final 2, catalpa and red elm, are also in the right of way.
What's the reason they want to take all the trees?
They are very nervous about as erosion is happening on that road, and I'll get to everyone's immediate fear that's probably in their head here. But so the property owner is worried about the erosion coming off the road on a very sloped side that those trees are on, revealing a lot more of the roots of the trees and potentially making them unstable. They are very into the idea of planting new trees into this, and
These trees are probably helping stabilize the
Yeah,
embankment.
exactly.
Just the reverse.
yeah, that's what I kind of help them with the full process of like closing the loop on that one. Right? Like without the trees, the erosion would probably be even worse.
Yeah.
But with the trees there, yeah, like long term over time, the erosion could lead to these trees becoming unstable. The other aspect to consider here is that since 6 of them may have the right to remove, that would drastically change the condition of the other 3 trees as they stand. None of those trees have grown to be confronted with like the full force of winds that may be coming around. Like they've all grown in unison, probably along an old fence line or structure. The Norway maple, with all our perspectives on Norway maples, is the healthiest of the 3. The catalpa is probably in the worst situation, mainly because of the extreme decay that's happening in it. And it has about a 45-degree lean away from the road.
Was that the one that was like this in
Yeah,
the picture?
So the catalpas are the species. They're a very lightweight tree overall. They're so extremely common for them to get this internal decay and everything. If the tree were to fail, it would not impact electrical lines. It would impact flow of traffic on the street. It would just fall into the yard. The homeowner would like to avoid that happening. And then the final one in this being the red maple. Got the picture for that. The red maple is also healthy. It is the one on the right here. The catalpa is on the left with the big wound at the base. The red maple also has a severe lean on it that's going into the neighbor's property, red elm has a severe lean on it that's going into the neighbor's property. It's a real 50-50 if all the other trees removed, what would end up happening with that red elm as far as how stable it could be.
Is there like a possibility to kind of like remediate the erosion without removing the tree, like maybe adding more trees and like stabilizing on the bank to kind of like make it safer for the tree?
Yeah.
Because it's, like removing the trees is not gonna help. But at the same time, if the roots get exposed and stuff, maybe kind of like help some of the tree. I feel like some might, maybe better off, but.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna bring back the photo of all the trees in the.
Yeah, I mean, Catalpa had removed all the
and the
trees. I
red
don't know. Planting new trees would be rather difficult because you'd still have all the underground root systems and, I don't know how you would plant. I mean, you might not be able to put a couple in, but you're not gonna get that number back in.
No, and if Kingston were to do all of the plantings within the right of way, which there is space to do so, because there's no sidewalk or other conflicts like that,
Cluster.
we would do a different spacing. We'd probably focus on large species since there's not a lot of like conflicts. Although the power lines are in the photo, like, we would probably do 40-foot spacing of large species trees, whereas these are spaced maybe 10 feet apart at the most. So almost all of these trees going from left to right, the property owner would be removing as they're on their property. And only the two at the end, with the person walking by, are the catalpa and the red elm with the leaves to them. Over the longer strip, new plantings with, basically like a contract planting crew.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, it seems like a shame to lose all of them. I can understand thinning them,
Yeah.
and taking, the worst of, the grouping, but removing all of them, and I realize that, 6 of them are beyond our control, but I certainly would try and do a real strong convincing of the benefit of the trees,
Yeah.
and once they're thin, they might be,
And with the soil, also like maybe,
Yeah.
some rocks and then buildings.
that would be my 2 cents.
Yeah, we know that going left to right, tree number 3, the Norway maple, that one I saw as being healthy. So as far as the benefits that a Norway maple provides, that Sue was just mentioning, that one could be retained. Because there's no like potential risk, there's no health or decline issues for that one to be maintained. I mentioned the observations of the catalpa and of the red elm. Those are the 3 that we have the potential to decide of that overall strip there, what to be done with.
I mean, the one in the middle looks pretty healthy.
Yeah.
But we don't have, that's their choice.
Yeah, but again, I think if we
Sure.
said, okay, as a tree commission, we would, we will not permit the maple to be removed because it's healthy, and that you have, that you have the authority over. But then you said because of the catalpa, the condition of that, and the leaning of the elm and the potential danger to the neighbor's property, will allow those 2 to go, and then really I would have a real strong conversation with this property owner and try and convince them that, thinning some of the remaining 6 and leaving a couple of the other healthier ones, rather than just taking it all out, it just is gonna be an enormous,
Yeah, the property owner also said that they really appreciate the privacy that these trees
Yeah.
provide too. There's a lot of incentives that they value about these trees. I think it's kind of, again, another situation that we see a lot of like, the only potential solution appears to be to just remove all of them, but with some additional information, then they can reassess these things and
Yeah.
find something besides a clear cut as an option.
And if they did thin them and there was room for a few other trees, they could start the process of new trees before
it's for all the large ones.
the
come
large
down.
ones go to the end of their life.
Yeah, that would be my preferred way to do it,
Yeah.
since between the Norway and the catalpa, that's, like a 50 or 60-foot stretch, that's ample space for new trees to go in as well, so I like that as a potential.
You said these trees are like 10 feet apart or something, somewhere in there?
Yeah, some 5 feet apart, some 20 feet apart, but, so I averaged it to 10.
What Sue was talking about, the root base, I'm not sure where you could actually plant the trees unless you go on
I guess you can add also more
the
soil.
left side of the property.
You could add more soil and just kind of like make a,
Mhm.
like some kind of like injection for the erosion. And speed it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
And just figure out where the water goes and make it, I feel like there are ways to can.
Any other questions?
And any of these trees now, were they cut back to accommodate for the wiring? Looks like it. I mean, least the
Only a
last-
little bit on the three to the left. That wire is going diagonal across the street.
Okay. Oh, crosses the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
So as we go further back, the wire's not really a conflict.
okay.
And you feel that the Catalpa looks pretty bad?
And looked hollowed out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's challenging because were it to fall, the likelihood of impact on any kind of target is almost zero unless someone decides to start sleeping underneath it. So like, I'm always someone who advocates for letting trees have like as long of a life as possible while mitigating the potential risk of them. And sometimes it's okay for a tree to fall, but rarely is it the case with just like a residential property.
Anybody want to make a motion?
People still trying to figure out.
To remove the whole,
Huh?
remove the tree or to remove the, to.
Well, I mean, again, going back to three that you have authorization over. Okay, you've got authorization over the maple, which is in very good health. I would recommend that that be
Say
retained.
no on that.
And then the catalpa and the red elm, which are the only two of this grouping that you have permission or authorization over. I think, you can authorize for the removal. And then, your typical conditions, and I would also, put into the motion that a conversation, be developed with the property owner to encourage them to selectively look at the balance of the trees on their property, not removing all of them, but maybe to thin it out a little, do maybe a little pruning, and then see how it goes. To try and encourage them to, like you said, maybe reforest a little bit at the same time, but allow some of the healthier ones to, grow respectively.
Now, the picture you showed of the red maple showed it was bent towards the street side.
Yeah, I said red maple, red elm, but sorry
Or
for
red elm?
misspeaking.
Yeah,
And that's the one on the end, on the
One on
corner.
the
very end, yeah.
Is that any hazard or it's a healthy tree
It is a healthy tree.
or no
It's-
issue?
Yeah, as usual, just, homeowners are a little bit like, if it's a lien, that's means there's very little tolerance for liens and trees, right? But, yeah, the only one that has like a structural complication to it is the catalpa. Yeah, I mean, for the tree commission, absolutely, like, this is a strip where I would stay in communication with the property owner about like, let's do this in a way that retains the maximum benefits while mitigates the risk, seen of the trees. Yeah, the idea of like reforesting, instead of it just being a one-shot clear-cut situation of selective removals, with planting in there, we don't have to necessarily, plant like our standard street tree with like a 36-inch ball and burlap root system. We could be planting a small bare root tree, which would not need like major excavation of like the remaining root systems and whatever did get removed. And that would actually be a pretty like easy condition for a bare root tree to be in, shaded. We know there's water because there's erosion, so.
The only thing is,
Vince, you move?
when you get to this size tree with a bare root, it's gonna take you a little bit of time.
Bare root actually grows faster than planting a established nursery tree.
With a root ball.
Yeah, usually those trees will sit in shock for at least 2 years, if not more, from like the system of having all the roots disturbed, whereas bare root, very small trees haven't had that kind of shock to them. So they establish much faster and ultimately over like a 5 to 10 year period will equal, if not outgrow, a standard nursery size tree.
Okay. And what about this size tree? How long would you think a bare root would,
Bare root tree might be this tall though.
I know.
Yeah.
I planted a bunch of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Motion? Okay, I can't think it.
I'll make a motion that we refuse the removal of the Norway maple, which is healthy. We allow the removal of the catalpa,
Mhm.
and I guess we allow the removal, I don't know, I'm a little,
Seems like the red elm is a sticking point.
yeah.
They could always reapply for removal of the red elm later.
And I'm
if-
wondering, once you get the catalpa down, they're very close together. Take the catalpa, could you prune the red maple and make it? I mean, obviously, it's already going that direction.
That's
It's
the
not gonna
problem.
change, but
Okay,
Yeah.
so just the removal of the catalpa, retaining the elm with a potential to prune, and then retaining the maple.
Yeah,
Okay, with the communication and the
Yeah.
usual, okay.
Yeah, so negotiating
and then
the rest of the
then
trees. Yeah.
negotiating, maybe
Okay.
leaving some trees, and
Yeah.
if they need to come back to us about the elm in the future or something.
yeah.
Yeah, I think with a combination also, I'm saying.
Is there a second? Okay, Corinne, second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Hmm.
Okay. Very good. Next one, 7981 Lucas.
That looks pretty dead.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think this one's a pretty simple one.
Yep, so this was a 311 call-in, tree is mostly dead. It's another, Norway maple, the homeowners already got a quote on doing the removal, and they, if approved, could have the removal done by the end of November. Yeah, so what's going on with the tree, a lot of dieback. From this angle, it's a little bit more clear. You can see like some very obviously dead limbs that are not like the small limbs that are just missing leaves. There's some decay and just kind of the usual maple decline that's going on.
They plant another tree.
It's a pretty good spot to put in your tree. So from my role, I would be adding in new trees to this location after this one is removed. This last photo, weird angle, but where my cursor is where you can start to see some of the decay. But I'd say probably 50% of the crown is down on this tree.
I think I did that tree a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah,
I was all this removal.
Okay, questions or motion?
A motion to allow the homeowner, 7981 Lucas Avenue to remove the dying Norway maple.
Okay, well, standard conditions, but,
Standard
okay.
conditions.
I need a second. Evan, thank you. Any questions?
Oh, actually, we want to recommend for them, for the owner to plant another tree.
Yes, that's part of the standard
Standard
conditions,
conditions.
as well as we would offer them, the, funding with the small grant stipend that we have. Okay. So there's a motion, a second. Any more questions? All in favor? Okay. Unanimous. Next one is 15 Voorhees.
15 Voorhees tree is up on the screen. It's a larger black walnut. No sidewalk or anything like that. The tree kind of sits right on the property line. Both homeowners on either side of the property line have agreed to share the cost of doing some light, just like maintenance pruning on it. And yeah, the main focus is just clearing up some dead limbs, including like this one that's over the transmission lines.
So it has no leaves on it, that's because it's the time of year. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say that's an easy one,
Yeah.
allow them to prune it.
Yep.
Great.
Okay, so I need a motion. Evan?
Yeah.
Okay,
Allow the 15 Voorhees Avenue to
Yeah.
prune the tree with all the standard conditions.
okay, Susan, motion, I need a second. I'll give it to Vince.
What kind of tree is that?
Black walnut.
So it bears fruit.
Yeah. Yeah, I love black walnuts. They're really tasty.
It's nice of you.
So there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Okay. It's not on your, agenda, but do you want to pull up 11 Linwood?
Oh, yeah.
This came in today, but they had the incorrect form, so we tried to get in touch with them. We have not been able to. And it's a removal request. So, we thought, because we don't meet for another month, that if it's, I don't know what it looks like yet, but we'll pull up the Google Earth map and look at it. If the condition warrants, we would, ask the commission to allow staff to work with the property owner to get the correct form in place. And it truly is the way Google Earth shows it. Maybe we authorize the removal now rather than delay it a month.
What's the address again?
11 Linwood. So it is pretty
Yeah.
healthy looking.
So
I
this-
guess we need to look at that,
Yeah,
yeah.
this photo is from 2023 also.
Okay,
So, yeah, they, it seems from the form that was submitted that they have concerns about the branches going over the house, you know.
could be a pruning then.
Exactly.
Okay, so then I would say we hold off on any decision until we
It's a site.
get the right form and do a little bit more work. Okay. So we'll table that one.
Yeah, and I've already reached out to the homeowner to talk about this one. And yeah, I'll do a site visit and see what they're needing.
Okay, so then moving just back up to the top of the agenda, Brent, do you want to just talk about the fall 2024 plantings that have been completed?
Yeah, yeah. Let's go over it quickly, but so we were able to plant 14 trees this fall. This included residential plantings, one commercial planting off of the side of the building on Broadway, two tulip poplars planted down at the Kingston Point Dog Park, one tulip poplar planted at oh, sorry, I'm blanking. Other park. Was so unprofessional. Hutton Park?
Hutton,
Yeah,
up on, yeah, okay.
Hutton Park, right along the baseball cage, set up over there. And then a couple of replacement trees along the Empire State Trail that goes along Greenkill Ave. So those trees were all put in on October 28th. And they were thoroughly watered at that time. And I'm very happy that we got 0.5 inches of rain over the weekend. But for the residential trees, also this week, I'm sending out an email to them since it's like a smaller number of trees, just saying like, hey, it's very dry. These trees could use another 10 gallons of water to help them with their establishment until we actually get to cold temperatures where they won't need watering anymore.
Okay. Then we'll move down to the removals.
Yeah, so with the USDA grant, I've got some funds that I've sent out requests for quotes for a couple of removals of one tree that is like 50% dead crown, decay throughout the middle. There's been a lot of utility pruning that has affected its like structural form and everything. The other two trees are just the trunks remain. All the branches have been pruned off of them. So this is just kind of addressing some trees that have been left standing that now the city has some extra funds. And the goal is to have this work completed by the end of the year to stay within like the terms of the USDA grant.
just quickly, so that everybody understands, there's actually like three sources of funds that are going on here, all in tandem. You have the City of Kingston budget, which is the general fund, and that's what the fall plantings went in with. And that's the monies that is from the city tax base, okay? There's a USDA grant, which is the grant that basically funds Brent's position, along with some other programming activities, and there is money in there for actual plantings, prunings, removals, okay? And then there's a third pot of money, which we're still working towards we just got that contract, I think, right? Is that contract here yet?
We don't have
No, we haven't gotten that yet. That's, close to $750,000, and that's all forest management money. So that will be used to do plantings, removals, prunings. The nice thing about that grant is that money in there will also allow us to do soil amenities and actual, working to create tree pits where none exist right now. Or they're too narrow, it will allow us to widen them, broaden them, and make the areas suitable for planting, which we've never had the funding available to do. So that's the pots of money, the grants, the DEC grant is the $750,000. That is a 4-year, 5-year?
4-year.
4-year. And the USDA grant is also a 4-year grant. So they're kind of spaced out across those timeframes, but there's substantial pots, which are, which look good.
Yeah, I'm already in contact with all the owners in the cities about like these sites that could be expanded to have better tree plantings going.
You want to talk about community engagement?
Yeah, so the last part of the agenda is our 2025 community engagement. The nice part about coming into this position is that I've met a lot of community members that have a lot of energy that could really use some direction towards Kingston's urban canopy. Similar to like what other areas have, New York City has like their citizen pruners. There's various programs in other parts of the country too, but basically volunteer tree maintenance, but in like the lowest category of these sort of things. So these are like weekend events for doing like weeding, mulching, watering, potential for some like hand pruner training sort of thing. And these are like programs that of the three funding sources that Sue just mentioned, the USDA provides funding money for having these sort of events or programs happening. Because I've met enough people that I think I can get a decent group of folks out to do these kind of things. Yeah, over the winter, it's development and promotion of it. So that way, when we get to late winter, early spring, which is a great time to do all this sort of thing, I can start having these volunteer groups meet up on weekends probably. And working title is Kingston Forest Friends, but that is subject to change. Harry?
How will you communicate the information for people who like to kind of,
Yeah, so what Sue and I had talked about was one, having a dedicated City of Kingston email address for it. It's not just me, so it could just be as simple as trees@kingstonny.gov. And then publicity for it will just be the city's like usual media channels through like social media. The mayor is very excited to have me back on his radio show to talk about this thing once it's developed. Communications about like what could be expected at any sort of event would go on the Engage Kingston page, which right now the only tree content on Engage Kingston is focused around the tree tracker, the counter for the mayor's goal of 1,000 trees by 2030. I'm now an admin on that page, so building that out is another winter project for me. The list keeps getting longer. Is anyone else noticing this? I'm making this problem for myself.
How did we do without you?
But basically, having Engage Kingston, since it's already the public portal for a lot of like projects going on, and a lot of this stuff is projects that are like grant funded, which is where a lot of that information shows up on Engage Kingston. To have a more established like Kingston Urban Forestry page on the Engage Kingston website with information about volunteer events. The tree tracker, any kind of like larger projects, really into the idea of the public having explicit knowledge about what's going on. The GIS map that was like a redevelopment project from the 2018 inventory. It's very close to having a public version that can also go on Engage Kingston. So the entire tree map could be there for the community to have access to as well. Yeah.
Last question.
That's great.
Will it be like also like a villain board kind of like community engagement? Could we imagine doing it in Spanish as
The
well?
language justice is a big part of this function too. So yeah, having the information available in Spanish. The nice thing about the little volunteer group being like Kingston Forest Friends, is that facsimile there is Amigos de Armoles, so we can keep some alliteration going on, right? And then as far as community work days and native Spanish speakers being at them, in the short term, since I would be the one navigating these things, the amount of Spanish that I am able to speak would be what would be available to native Spanish speakers. And the majority of my Spanish is based around working with tree crews. So a lot of the stuff that I know how to say is about what to do with trees.
Perfect.
Yeah.
There's a question about how, like, do we know the percentage we're relying on the, this fund coming from the federal government or something? We actually be concerning like this new administration, like, are they going to, like shrinking the fund and, for the next, for the next year or next 4 years or something?
Yeah, you're talking about like the city tree fund, like the shade, the
Right.
portion of the city budget for shade
Yeah.
trees? Yeah. That's voted on every year. So it's stayed pretty steady.
Yeah, and I don't see it being taken out because of the grants. And one of the reasons why we would argue to keep it in is that the grants also are limited in some cases in areas where the funds can be expended. So, having money in the city budget allows us to do anywhere in the city. So if neighborhood A is not covered by grant B, then neighborhood A we can pull from that kind of money to fill in those gaps. So I would argue it for that reason alone.
If anyone has any extra thoughts on the volunteer stuff, collective knowledge, we got a lot of it.
I do.
Yeah. I got my business card ready for you. I think, because we are pretty limited on time, there's
Yeah,
another
we
meeting
have another meeting in here at 6.
at
so-
6, but always over email, any and all ideas. You will have my email address as well.
Yeah.
But we still have a couple minutes, so.
Yeah, so.
Okay, so I'll be quick. Mulching volcanoes.
Mhm.
That's the problem I see in Kingston as arborist. It's everywhere.
Mhm.
And it's city planted trees, it's whatever nursery, the big nursery, small nursery, everybody mentioned today, like everybody does that, and it has a huge monkey see, monkey do effect, because people see that, city planted the tree, they do the same with day tree. Like Pine Grove Avenue, I was looking
It's
at that
terrible.
like, for 2 years, it's 2 feet of mulch
I
there.
know.
The roots there already, it's all girding, it's all bad, it's such a waste of money, and it doesn't, like for me, it doesn't take much money or efforts to deal with that. Basically, you just spread it out, and initially you spend less money on mulch, which might be a reason why they do it, but I thought that would be a great project for volunteers.
Absolutely.
Because it's easy to track, easy to deal with, just a couple of rakers and a couple of people, and let them communicate to people around too. That would make a huge effect. Also, I don't know if you have any sort of landscaping, I don't know, meetings, like arborists do, they gather everywhere. Landscapers, I tried to find it, I couldn't. There's a couple big conferences, but they don't change experience much.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, maybe because it's just, cutting grass is easy, like we start a business, whatever. but it was hard for me to find kind of like local landscaping, I don't know, experience exchange, something like that.
It's a huge divide between the landscaping world and like the arboricultural world.
Yeah.
The conferences don't overlap. The landscaping conferences, it's mostly just focused on like mow and blow landscaping operations and what's the latest lawnmower, what's the latest leaf blower, as opposed to like talking about best practices. Yeah.
So maybe through volunteers, that would help a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, the hugest part of all of this, as we all know, is public education. Like that's something we've been fighting uphill with. You know, I'm the youngest one here, but all my life. And yeah, we all just have to keep up with it.
Well, it's funny because my church is on Pine Grove Avenue, going back to your first. And I thought about walking across the street and spreading
Just
out the
spreading
mulch.
it, I
And
know.
I thought, you know, it's not my property, I don't know who did it, and I thought, well, maybe there's some reason for it.
Then you want to meet up with
I
your
don't know
whole
why
congregation.
people
Like that you have to do it
I
that
thought
way.
about actually doing that,
Yeah.
not for the whole street,
I
but
saw
for.
that the Augustine Nursery was planting a couple more trees there in Pine Grove, replacing the dead ones because they died because of the mulching volcanoes. And they did, well, not quite the same, they put a little less, but still, they overdo it. And that's a top nursery.
Yeah,
There's two people that worked on that. It was the Y and the architect that since
Dutton. Scott Dutton?
Scott Dutton and someone from the Y planted those trees, and that was.
Yeah, but I think
That was a commitment.
Herzog's, wasn't Herzog's, see, Scott paid for him, but I think.
Scott-
Yeah, who did the actual planning?
Scott and some lady from the Y. I forgot her name.
My
So the
understanding-
city won't come and arrest me if I cross the street and pick up.
Yeah,
Once a week I'll
I will
bring
form
a
a
tree.
windshield.
I'll just have somebody talk
We
to
can
Scott,
make a motion.
since he paid for it, he probably would have some say about.
I mean, Scott knows better, so I don't think he would do it.
Yeah, I don't think he knows.
No, but I mean, he's the one that initiated the planting of those trees. with the
Right.
road. And he should be the one that, and probably he's the one that had whoever put the mulching.
It's also-
Crown the mulch instead of making the basin.
Actually, I think Herzog's did the planting. I don't know.
Also
We can
on
give
Pine
him a
Grove,
call. It's not, you
I
know,
should mention there's not mulch. It's a
Or
mix
whatever
of
it is.
mulch and the dirt which they were lazy to take out. They
Yeah.
just mix it up. and pile it.
The Pine Grove lizards that were part of that big median project, they were also planted pretty high where the upper root ball was above soil
Yeah.
grade, which is not within planting specs in the first place. And another thing on the list, but yeah, so like with the fall plantings that went in, a DEC planting specs, so just the New York State standard planting specs, which have, you know, the tree at grade, no volcano mulching, spread in more of a donut shape sort of. That was given to them. And yeah, moving onward, every contractor will be getting those specs too. You're so passionate by the mulch right now, but
I'm getting over a cold,
Yeah.
and I feel much better, but
we gotta,
every now and then I get this.
we gotta cut
Well,
out.
how can you go to the planter to address this? Would you go to the person that purchased it?
you wanna do like the crew that's out planting the trees.
You would, you go there to. Or whatever it is.
In the case of that, yeah, you kind of, we should really close out this meeting, but.
Yeah. we close out.
Motion to
Thank
adjourn.
you.
Second.
Second by, Green. All in favor? Thank
So
you.
Brandon Kelly went to.
Keep talking.
You can keep